Have you ever wondered why some things just explode, become these massive global hits, while other things that seem just as good totally fizzle out? Well, it's usually not about talent or even quality. It's about something deeper, these invisible systems, these unseen rules that are really pulling the strings. And to get a handle on them, we're going to crack a really fascinating case.
So here's the mystery we're diving into. Why is it that Japanese manga completely took over the world, while American comics, these were cultural giants, right? Just kind of faded into this tiny niche corner of the market. The answer is so much bigger than just comics. It pulls back the curtain on these hidden rules of success that apply to, well, pretty much everything.
And just look at the difference here. It could not be more dramatic. On one side, you have a system that became brittle, catering to a shrinking, super-specialized audience. And on the other, you have this resilient system that just blew up into a global, mass-market powerhouse, with a readership that's always growing and always changing. So what was the one crucial difference? Well, it all kicks off with a system that literally couldn't feel pain.
To really get why the American comic industry stumbled, we've got to look at its fatal flaw. It was a system designed, almost perfectly, to ignore the single most important signal for its own survival. Okay, so this brings us to a really core idea. It's called the pain signal principle. And it's actually super simple. Think about it. You touch a hot stove, right? That feeling of pain, that's a signal. It's critical data screaming at you. Hey, pull your hand away. It's what keeps you safe. Well, a business, or any system really, needs the same thing. It needs negative feedback, like terrible sales numbers, to know when it's messing up. And if you try to ignore or suppress that pain, you're basically just setting yourself up for a total collapse.
And that is exactly what happened in the US comics industry. Just look at this timeline. Back in the 70s, this thing called the direct market gets created, and it had one crucial new rule. Comic shops had to buy all their comics on a non-returnable basis. Suddenly, all the financial risk of books that didn't sell got dumped onto the small shop owners. This had a huge effect. It pulled comics off of newsstands and out of supermarkets, locking them away in these specialty shops. And by the 90s, this created a wild, speculative bubble that ended in a massive, catastrophic market crash.
So this is the key. The publishers became systemically blind. From their point of view, every single comic they shipped to a store was a sale. They totally lost that pain signal, the pain of unsold comics just piling up in the back rooms of stores all over the country. They had no real idea if people were actually reading the comics. They just knew they were selling them to this captive network of shops.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly shows the danger of a short-sighted fix. By trying to solve this one immediate problem, the cost of returns, the industry accidentally created this hidden, ticking time bomb. It built a system that was designed to ignore reality.
All right, so now let's flip the coin and look at the complete opposite approach. The Japanese manga industry was built on a totally different philosophy, one that actually embraces failure and sees it as essential data.
This chart here really lays out the two mindsets side by side. Look at that core philosophy. The US model tried to hide the risk by just shoving it onto the retailer. That suppressed all those vital pain signals. But the Japanese model, it was designed to spread out the risk, to diffuse it, so that no single failure could bring the house down. It treated those pain signals not as something to be afraid of, but as critical data you could use to learn and adapt.
The secret weapon for the Japanese system is this thing called iterative vetting. And it's kind of a genius idea. It's this multi-step process for testing out new stories. So instead of betting the farm on some unproven concept, you test it in a small way, you prove that people actually want it, and only then do you scale it up.
So let's break down how this actually works. A brand new manga series, it doesn't get a huge launch. Nope, it starts as just one chapter buried inside one of those massive phone book-sized weekly magazines. It's the ultimate low-cost test. Then, the readers vote. They literally decide what lives and what dies with polls. If your series is popular, it continues. If not, it gets canceled, fast. It's a small, controlled failure, no big deal. But if you make the cut, if you prove you're a hit, then you get collected into your own book. And if that does well, then you get the whole media mix. Anime, video games, all the merch. The whole system is just genius. It's designed to let things fail small so that it can find the things that will win really big.
Now, this whole philosophy of listening to the audience, of learning from them, it's not just for print. It has evolved in some really dramatic ways in the digital age, and it's led to two completely different ways of finding new ideas.
This right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it.
The traditional US model relies on a handful of expert gatekeepers, editors, agents, and they're all asking one question. Can we predict what people are going to buy? It's a huge bet, and it's based on their intuition. The Japanese model, though, asks a way more powerful question. Can we build a system that discovers what people already love?
And the ultimate version of this is the Japanese web novel scene. You have these platforms like Shosetsukat ni Naro, which basically means let's become a novelist, and they are open to literally anyone. Millions of amateur writers post their stories for free, and millions of readers vote with their clicks. What this does is it creates a massive free A&R department for the entire publishing industry. The publishers just sit back and watch the data to see what's bubbling up to the top.
And the scale we're talking about is it's mind-boggling. A single one of these platforms can have nearly 1 million different novels with over 2 million users, and together they generate over 1 billion page views every single month. It's this unbelievable engine for filtering talent, for using the wisdom of the crowd to find those hidden gems.
So this new system creates all these fascinating new behaviors from authors. Because they have to compete for attention, you get what's called the long title phenomenon. The titles become these super descriptive one-sentence summaries like, "That time I got reincarnated as a slime." It's basically search engine optimization, but for fiction. It tells you the whole premise right there. And they also use strategic tags and update constantly to play the platform's algorithms and stay visible.
Okay, so we've looked at pain signals, spreading risk, and listening to the crowd. We have all the pieces of the puzzle now. We can finally solve our mystery.
At the end of the day, the answer is simple. Manga didn't take over the world because the art or the stories were inherently better. It won because it was built on a fundamentally superior system. A system designed to handle risk in a smart way, to listen to feedback, and most importantly, to learn from its own failures.
This final chart really says it all, doesn't it? Let's just look at the drivers. The US system ended up relying on this fragile, speculative interest, people buying comics as investments. By shutting down its feedback loops, the outcome was inevitable, a brittle niche market. But the Japanese system, it's fueled by genuine, robust narrative interest, people just wanting a good story. Because it embraces those pain signals as data, the result is this incredibly resilient global market that just keeps on growing.
So, what we've really been talking about this whole time is something called a social system. It's that invisible network of rules, relationships, and resources that shapes how we all behave in these powerful ways we don't even notice. And when you start to understand these systems, you can start to see why the world works the way it does.
And that brings us right to the final big question. The same principles that decided the fate of manga and comics, they are at play all around us, in our jobs, in our hobbies, in our communities. So what are the unseen rules that are shaping your world? And are they designed to be resilient, or are they designed to be fragile?